Hey everyone, welcome back to Stories Aloud, where we explore the world of books, stories, and everything that helps you become a better reader. Today's video is all about how to start a reading habit, even if you've never been consistent before, and how to actually remember what you read. If you've ever picked up a book, read a few pages, and then forgotten everything, or struggled to make reading a part of your daily routine, this video is for you. Stick around because by the end, you'll have simple, actionable ways to make reading enjoyable, easy, and unforgettable. Let's dive in. You know the feeling, right? That little bit of panic when someone asks, "So, what was that book about?" And your mind just goes completely blank. It happens to the best of us. It's super common, mainly because most of us were never really taught how to read to remember things. We just read the words. But today, we're going to fix that. We're going to look at a clear strategy to make those ideas actually stick. So, here's our game plan. We're going to break this down into 4 simple parts. First up, we'll talk about how to make reading a totally automatic habit. Then, we'll get into a skill that sounds weird but is a game changer, knowing when to quit a book. After that, we'll shift gears from just reading words to really understanding ideas. And finally, the big one, a system to make all that amazing knowledge last. All right, let's jump into section 1. So what's the real secret to making reading a habit that actually sticks? Well, it's not about gritting your teeth and using all your willpower. It's about building a clever little system, one that makes grabbing a book feel as natural as brewing your morning coffee. So, how do we build that system? Well, there's a really simple psychological trick called the if-then strategy. The whole idea here is that you decide ahead of time what you're going to do. Instead of just hoping you'll magically find time to read, you create a very specific trigger for it. This basically removes all the guesswork and the need for motivation, making the whole thing pretty much automatic. Let's see how this actually works. It's super simple. You just link the new habit you want, reading, to something you already do every day. For instance, if I'm standing in line for my coffee, then I'll read just 2 pages on my phone. The magic is in being super specific. That specificity is what turns those little pockets of wasted time into golden reading opportunities. And to make that if-then thing even more powerful, you got to use what I call the easy reach rule. It's exactly what it sounds like. You set up your environment so that reading is the absolute easiest thing to do. Keep a book right on your nightstand. Put your reading app on the front page of your phone and, maybe move those distracting social media apps somewhere else. You're basically making the good habit easier to do than the bad one. And here's a little pro tip for you. You don't have to stick to just one book at a time. Seriously, having 2 or more books going for different moods can be a total game changer. Maybe you read something inspiring or a bit of nonfiction in the morning to get your brain fired up for the day. And then at night, an amazing fantasy novel is the perfect escape to help you unwind. It's all about matching the book to the moment. Now for our second section. And this one might feel a little wrong at first. We're all taught that we have to finish what we start, right? But when it comes to reading, forcing yourself through a book you just don't like can be the very thing that kills your entire motivation to read it all. Just let that sink in for a second. Life is way too short to waste time slogging through a book that you're just not connecting with. Quitting a book isn't a failure, not at all. It's actually a really smart strategy that frees up your time for a book you might absolutely fall in love with. It keeps reading fun and exciting, which is the whole point. Okay, so here's a super simple trick to do this without any of the guilt. Just start a did not finish list or a DNF list. Whenever you decide to quit a book, just write it down there, maybe with a quick note about why it wasn't for you. This one small act turns it into a conscious choice, not a failure. It gives you closure and lets you move on to the next great read completely guilt-free. Okay, so you've built the habit. That's awesome. Now let's level up how you're actually reading. The goal here is to switch from being a passive consumer, just letting the words wash over you, to being an active participant in a conversation with the author. This is where the real magic, the real understanding happens. So let's look at the difference here. Passive reading, well, that's what most of us do by default. You might highlight a sentence, which feels productive, but often that information goes in one ear and right out the other. Active reading is totally different. It's about talking back to the book, rewriting ideas, asking questions, and connecting what you're reading to your own life. So how do you become an active reader without it feeling like homework? The trick is to leave a little breadcrumb trail for your future self. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. A quick note in the margin, a question mark next to something confusing. But honestly, the most powerful technique is to just pause every now and then and try to explain a key idea in your own words. That little act of translation is what builds a really strong memory. And this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the most rewarding part. You've read the book, you've understood it, but how do you make sure you don't forget it all a week from now? Well, you need a system. Here it is, a simple but incredibly effective 3-step system. Step 1 is capture. While you're reading, just jot down the main ideas in your own words. Step 2 is connect. Wait a few days, then go back to those notes and organize them into themes or categories that make sense to you. And the last step, the most important one, is recall. About a week later, hide your notes and try to write a summary of the whole book just from memory. That final struggle to recall is what really locks the knowledge into your brain. Now, the reason this system works so well is because of some cool brain science called the spacing effect. It might sound weird, but letting yourself forget just a little bit between reading sessions is actually good for your memory. See, every time you come back to the book, your brain has to work a little harder to rebuild those ideas. And it's that effort that makes the memory stick around for good. So yeah, reading in short bursts is actually a great thing. So there you have it. You've got the if-then strategy to build the habit, the DNF list to keep you motivated, active reading to really understand, and that 3-step system for long-term memory. It's a complete toolkit to totally transform your relationship with reading. With all these strategies in your back pocket, you are totally equipped to make reading a consistent, meaningful part of your life, and to actually remember what you learned. So I guess the only question left is, what's the first book you're going to try this with? Thanks for watching. I hope these tips helps you kickstart your reading journey and remember the stories you explore. If you learned something new or feel inspired to pick up a book today, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Stories Aloud for more book-inspired videos. Got your own tips for building a reading habit or remembering what you read? Drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep the stories alive. See you in the next video.